Hi everyone, welcome back to the Blood Ties podcast. I'm Molly Wansell and I'm here with my father, Geoffrey Wansell.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Blood Ties 2.0, a new incarnation.
Yeah. That makes it sound like there's something exciting having happened to us, and there actually isn't at all.
No.
Opposite.
Not really.
We're declining rather than...
Well, I'm certainly declining, there's no question of that.
Hey ho, how are you, Dad?
I'm pretty good. I mean, yes, considering very good, actually.
Yeah.
I'm positive and, there are irritations in life, but you've got to try and get over them. Get on with the next bit. And besides, there's wonderful things to watch on television.
Yeah, what have you been watching? Anything good?
I watched a very interesting documentary on actually a story I've done before on another series, but they did an hour episode. It's about a murder in Orkney.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned this to me. You said it was a good.
Yeah, it is actually a very, very good story about this most extraordinary. A man walks into the only Indian restaurant in Orkney, walks up to a waiter, puts a gun to his head, kills him, and walks calmly back out.
In broad daylight?
Well, it was early evening, and Orkney, it's light a very large part of the time.
That's amazing.
And nobody knew who did it. And his father was a policeman. And
who, the waiter's father?
No, the perpetrator's father, yeah. But nobody knew. It turned out he was only 15 at the time, and he joined the army, joined the Black Watch Regiment, and had a very distinguished army career, which lasted for 12 years, before it was discovered that actually
he committed this murder.
He did it. And it was one of those wonderful ones, because so often, the killer isn't trapped by Sherlock Holmes' genius. He trips over the step. And so this one, he'd gone to the local public, gone along to the local public convenience, and a man had met him in there. No, it was simply that he decided to change his clothes. And that was how one of the signal pieces of evidence finally against him.
Oh.
He was imprisoned.
I watched the Titan submersible doc.
I didn't watch that. Is it good?
I mean, it's mad. Yeah. I mean, it's like completely mad.
Yeah.
Because obviously the thing was it was born to break.
Yeah.
So how on earth? Yeah, it's wild. It's worth a watch because you're just like, your mouth's open the entire way through thinking, how, what, how? I wonder, I don't know, it's quite an interesting idea, isn't it? It's like the guy who ran that company and built that submersible and wanted so desperately to become this, famous for taking people so close to the Titanic and da-da-da-da. Like, and he is therefore responsible for the death of 4 innocent people who thought that they would be okay going down there. And it was clear that this thing was not safe at all. Do we class that man in the same class as these people that we talk about on this podcast? Because he had the traits of narcissism or megalomania, or do you think that's just a byproduct? He was told many times that it wasn't safe. He's putting lives, including his own, at risk by choosing to do that when he was told expressly not to. Does that put him in the same camp as the people that we talk about?
It's a very good question. But for the fact that he died with them, I suppose that's the distinction.
Yeah.
That he put his own life at risk as well.
So he's not trying to get. He doesn't get any satisfaction from their deaths.
He's not getting satisfaction from the killings.
Yeah.
But it's the narcissism is absolutely.
A lot of the traits are very similar, though. It's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Bundy was a narcissist of the first water, and there can be no question. Because there has to be an element of that if you believe totally that you're always right.
Yeah, that's what his thing. It was just like, I don't care what you say.
I know I'm
right. I'm just going to do it anyway. I'm not interested in hearing any of this stuff.
Well, I'll have a look.
It's interesting.
Yes.
Be interesting. Okay. Well, what do we got today?
Today, I thought I'd do a British case, and I'll tell you why. Because the perpetrator is eligible for parole now.
Okay.
And in particular, one of the victims who survived is very anxious that he should not be given parole. And we'll talk about what that means at the end of the story. But I think it would be fair to say that he was a merciless and manipulative killer. But for the purposes of this, I'm going to call him the random rapist.
Oh. Okay.
Well,
I really don't like that title. Is there something else? We can call him?
We could call him the I Heard Voices Killer.
Okay, that's
Is that better?
Yeah, can we have that?
There you go.
The I Heard Voices Killer. Okay, here we go.
There we go. Well, the man in question is Nicholas Burton. He was his exact date of birth isn't entirely clear, but he was certainly born in or around 1970 in New Mills in Derbyshire. When he was a young man, he was described as happy-go-lucky, and he worked as a sheet metal worker for a company which had employed his father for over 30 years. It was in Derbyshire. He was engaged to his long-term girlfriend. However, in 1991, when Burton was 21, his girlfriend took a singing job in Newcastle and ended their relationship so she could move away. His mother, Nicholas Burton's mother, then said he took the breakup very badly, and by 1992, the following year, he was abusing substances regularly, leading to a downward spiral into instability and violence. In 1994, Burton began another relationship with a woman who he'd met on a holiday in Greece, but when they got back, she realised the extent of his drug abuse, and the holiday romance petered out. Now, you can speculate all you like. Is this a hatred of women? What is going on here? There's no question that he's abusing drugs. There's no question that he was deeply disturbed. But from people's relationships break up. It doesn't turn them into killers. But nevertheless, and this one became even more strange because after 1994, he started shouting at invisible people and injured himself on a number of occasions, once trying to perform what I hesitate to think, self-circumcision. She'd begged him to visit a doctor. His mother had begged him to visit a doctor to seek help. And nevertheless, as he continued to deteriorate, he developed an obsession with religion. He started sprinkling water on the doorstep to bless the house. Well, you have a young man who is clearly...
Well, he's probably in psychosis.
Yes.
If he's taking drugs, he's probably in drug-related psychosis.
Yes.
Unfortunately, so many of the people we talk about are probably suffering terribly with mental health disorders.
I think that's probably true. And the trouble is, what do you do? You can't be sure.
Well, if they're not being taken care of, then these things, yeah.
Yeah. Well, this brings us rather tragically to the night of the 25th of April 1997. Now, let me tell you about the victim. This was a young woman called Rachel McGrath. She was 27, the daughter, in fact, of a county court judge, Brian McGrath. She grew up really close to her older brother, Michael. She'd become an assistant manager and a mortgage advisor at a building society. She liked her job. Stable, long-term relationship. And her parents described her after the sad killing. She was at a lovely stage in her life when she was extremely proud of the home she was putting together and was optimistic about her future. She was described by her friends as loving, caring, and full of life, as well as bright and enthusiastic and outgoing. But on the night of the 25th of April 1997, she had the misfortune to encounter Nicholas Burton. Now, Nicholas Burton had been drinking in a pub in Bramall in Stockport, Greater Manchester, outside Liverpool and Manchester. He later reported that he'd gone there to find a beautiful woman that he could rape and kill.
Grim.
Other people at the time, in the pub at the time reported he was drinking Guinness and borrowing money from strangers to buy those little cigars, those small cigars. He was wearing a black leather jacket, inside which he'd concealed a sharpened hunting knife and a knife sharpener. In other words, he'd gone equipped to kill. Burton later recounted that he'd followed 2 women out of the pub with the intent of raping and killing one of them, but he'd lost them. They'd split up and he didn't know which one to follow. So he went back to the pub. That same evening, Rachel had dropped her boyfriend at the pub and gone to visit her parents, who lived in Cheshire. She went to see them for about 45 minutes to an hour, and then she drove back to the pub to collect her boyfriend again. It's about 11 o'clock. Unfortunately, she's left the passenger door of the car unlocked. Burton comes out of the pub, spots her in her car, in the car park, opens the passenger door, gets in, and threatens her with a knife. I mean, it is horrifying, really. Burton told the court, when he was finally caught, that he got into and asked her to drive whilst pointing the knife at her. He reported instead of driving away, Rachel was obviously a woman of some character. Rather than driving away, she jumped out of the car and started running towards the pub, screaming. He jumped out of the car, followed her, and stabbed her repeatedly, including from a neck. He left her with a 9-inch gash in her throat and 12 other stab wounds, and he ran away with the knife still in his hands. Among the first people to discover Rachel's body was her boyfriend, who come out of the pub because of the screams. I mean, it's an entirely random killing. There's no rhyme nor reason to it. It's just this deeply disturbed man and this utterly innocent and victim. But it gets slightly worse because now, having had a taste for it, so to speak, Burton decides, well, if I've already killed one, I'm going to go and find another. So he kidnaps, abducts and kidnaps a 17-year-old called Debbie. I won't give her a second name because she's with us, although she has been interviewed comparatively recently. She was a student, and she'd stopped at a nearby newsagent not far from the pub. She was on her way to a part-time job at a local retail store, obviously overnight job, and had stopped to get something to eat. Burton approached her with a knife, with the same knife, presumably still blood-stained, and said, this is wonderful, extraordinary, these stories like this throw up. He said, give me your money and get into the car, please. And which I'm afraid she did.
Wait, whose car? Her car?
This is her car.
Okay.
Her car. Burton then persuades her to drive to North Wales, about 100 miles. And they stop at various points. They stop at a service station. It's extraordinary, really. The poor girl was obviously terrified, and who wouldn't be? At one point, they stopped in Snowdonia for quite a long time, certainly more than 2 hours, and she kept talking to him to divert him. She kept talking to him and trying to build up some kind of empathy.
That's a lot when she was so young.
Yes, but to her eternal credit, she did it with considerable grace and charm. Anyway, Burton was, taken in that sense. And after 11 hours of driving and stopping and talking and things, Burton orders Debbie to stop the car at a petrol station in Carnarvon to refuel the car, and he wants her to take £100 out of her bank account. She flees. She gets out of the car and runs. and there's a taxi driver at another of the pumps, and he helps her. He said, "No, don't worry. Get in my cab," and they drive off, leaving Burton with Debbie's car. Well, Burton does not seem in the least bit upset by this. He gets into the car and drives away, and goes to a hotel in Bangor, not that much far away, and he ordered steak and Guinness, and had a normal conversation with the coach driver in the bar of the little hotel he'd stopped at. Well, not surprisingly, it doesn't take the police very long to find Nicholas Burton. I mean, it took them about 30 hours. And of course he hasn't, because he's not Professor Moriarty. He's got clothing belonging to Rachel. He's got the murder weapon. The evidence is staggeringly strong. But now comes the twist. He's detained at the hospital wing of Strangeways, as it then was in Manchester, now HMP Manchester, where he told another inmate that he'd killed Rachel because she'd refused to hand over money and started screaming. Wasn't actually true, particularly, but never mind. Speaking about his time whilst in court, he admitted in evidence that he had what he called later a few tricks up his sleeve. It was the first time that, about 9 months after his arrest and slightly before the trial, that he told his solicitor that he'd heard voices. It was only obeying voices that believed that God was willed him to have sex with women and then kill them. Well, that went on to delay the trial, because then the whole defence of guilty by, not guilty but for reasons of insanity comes into play. So finally, in April 1998, Burton appears at Liverpool Crown Court, facing 4 charges: murder, kidnapping, false imprisonment, and threats to kill. Burton denies them all, pleading diminished responsibility due to insanity, claiming he'd been driven by the voices in his head. The defence call 3 psychiatrists, all of whom say Burton was a schizophrenic and that he may well have been hearing voices. Mm. However, the prosecution called 2 psychiatrists who disputed the claim and said so in court, both of whom had assessed him while he'd been transferred to Rampton Secure Hospital at this point. And one in particular, a lady forensic psychiatrist, said she didn't believe he was suffering from mental illness at this time, nor at the time of the offence. Both psychiatrists agreed that Burton was one of the most dangerous individuals they'd come across in their professional careers. He was manipulative, he was scheming, he was extremely aware of what he was going to do. And when the jury was sent out, it took them 55 minutes to come back to find Burton guilty of Rachel's murder and the kidnapping of Debbie. He received 3 life sentences for murder, kidnapping, and false imprisonment, and a determinate period of 25 years. In his sentencing remarks, the judge said, Mr. Justice Morland said, "You showed no sign of pity for his victims or remorse for his terrible deeds," and added, and this is significant, he would recommend that no Home Secretary ever allow his release. Burton's defence counsel had hoped to be sent to a mental hospital instead of jail, but of course, as again the judge remarked, the first time you told anyone about these voices was 9 months after your arrest. You failed to hoodwink the jury. In 2021, in other words, many years later, Burton became eligible for parole because the 25-year minimum tariff came to an end in May 2022. Now, in May 2022, Debbie, who has survived the attack, goes public saying he should never be given parole. The parole board insist that he's been sufficiently rehabilitated in prison, that he's eligible for parole. And the debate about Nicholas Burton continues. And my point would be that as he was so manipulative and thoughtful and scheming, that he could well have groomed the prison authorities. After all, we've seen it happen before. And I would suggest that he's an extremely dangerous man and does not deserve parole. But how many times have we talked about the failure of the parole board to take into account what happens before the crime? In other words, the parole board only judge at the moment on what the prisoner has conducted himself in prison. There is a review of the parole board going on currently by the Home Office, asking whether or not the parole board must take much more into account, including the background of the crimes and the defence, of the prisoner's defence, that it must be a much more holistic picture of what's the prisoner's capacity.
Yeah. Yeah,
but
fair.
You can imagine Debbie's now in her 40s, of course, and absolutely convinced. Very moving interviews with a couple done in 2022. So far, Burton remains in jail, but will he remain in jail? I would say he was only too likely to offend again, but
I don't know. How old is he now?
Well, he was at the time. He was born in about 1970, so he would be what now? 55, something like that.
It's so hard to say. We don't have all the details.
No, we don't, and
it's a very tricky question. We often stumble across
the
moral and ethics of life.
Is he been rehabilitated?
Well, we have no idea.
Or is he scheming to get out? It's a real tough judgment.
If I was in the victim's position, I would be exactly the same.
Yes, I'm sure you would.
It's moot anyway, rehabilitated or not.
Yeah.
But then we talked about that other documentary I'd watched, and on that one, the quilting one about the prisoners who do quilting.
Yeah.
And the man who ran the quilting thing, he was in prison for a murder he committed when he was, in his early 20s or late teens or something. He was in prison for life. He seemed to me, from what I saw on the program, to be fully remorseful.
I haven't looked at that show. I will, Mo.
But a very different situation, because I think it was just wasn't opportunistic.
Well, the most famous fictional, not fictional, it's kind of most famous movie about that is Burt Lancaster in The Birdman of Alcatraz, who was never allowed to be released.
We talked about that.
And, he had clearly been transformed in prison, but it's always a tough call. That I'm more suspicious of the parole board, though.
Yeah, and I seem to be sort of how I feel is like erring on the side of wanting people to be rehabilitated.
Yes.
But then, I think that's just because that's what I want to be the case, rather than would necessarily be the case. And then we'd have to also believe that the prison system was good enough to rehabilitate people, which is a really tricky one. Even if there are some people trying to do good in that system, it's...
Well, I've done 7, 8 documentaries on prisons in Britain. The latest on Wandsworth, which is a catastrophe.
I feel like prisons is sort of like our view on rubbish. We're like, we've made rubbish. What do we do with it? It doesn't biodegrade. Let's just dig a hole and bury it. Or like, let's set it out to sea. Let's put it somewhere we can't see it, basically. And then it's not a problem. But of course, it's causing a huge problem.
Yes.
It's just that we can't see it. It's a similar thing. It's like such an interesting kind of human response to something you don't know how to deal with. It's like, put it somewhere and shut the door.
Yeah.
And then it won't be an issue.
Well, it's very human. We're all capable of putting something in a cupboard.
No, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. It's like, that's the simplest...
Yes.
That's the simplest solution.
But when it pops out of the cupboard, in other words, were Nicholas Burton to be in the cupboard and started
when the
pushing
ice caps start melting.
When he starts pushing the door open, you're beginning to wonder whether or not...
Exactly. Then suddenly,
So it is an interesting case, because it illustrates one of the problems that we have as a society, which is how do we deal? Now, as you know, I've argued persistently that we should have a supermax prison. We should actually construct a supermax prison in Britain, which is specially which special staff, and you have to throw whatever help you can at prisoners.
I think we need to put money into the prison system. Like, I've often thought, like, could we just take 1% of footballers' salaries and put it into I know we can't, but you know what I mean. It's like there needs to be, even with things that are difficult to deal with, or people who've done things wrong, and therefore you're like, oh, these people don't deserve anything good. That's not exactly what I'm saying. It's like we need to invest in that for any good to come out of it. If we continue to treat it as something where it's like that doesn't deserve investment because those people have done something bad, nothing will ever change.
There's no doubt that's unquestionably right. But the trouble is that
government wants to put money there. It doesn't look good for them, does it?
No, I've been told many times by politicians there's not a single vote in prisons, not one. People don't want one.
People not interested and don't want to see nice things being done that look shiny. They don't want to.
No,
do
they
that.
certainly don't want to spend any more money on prisons.
Yeah,
which is in many ways tragedy.
Well, it's kind of counterintuitive, isn't it? Because you would do well to
lock them up and throw away the key.
Doesn't really.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, Mo, that's Nicholas Burton.
The I Hear Voices killer.
The I Hear Voices killer.
Thanks, Dad.
I'm not sure thanks is the right
I know.
word.
I was thinking that once I'd said it. Not very jolly.
No. A cautionary tale.
Yeah. Have you watched anything that's not crime related?
Not much. I watched a bit of Yellowstone, but I've watched an awful lot of crime. I think I am in danger of becoming obsessed.
Oh, becoming? I think that ship's already sailed. I've missed the boat there.
Yeah, but I have watched a heck of a lot of crime.
A heck of a lot of crime. Okay, well, thanks very much. Thank you to all the people who help us. Our producer, Peter, my brother, Dan, who did the music, my friend, George, who drew our caricature, to Geoffrey for all the hard work, and to you, the listeners, thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. It means a great deal to Molly and I. And you are very important to us. So thank you again. And as I always say, bad things happen to good people. So do be careful out there.